Welcome back to the show where we're looking at levels of censorship in the media and arts in Malaysia. Joining me are Raja Petru, the editor of Malaysia Today website, Kee Thuan Chye, a playwright and veteran Malaysian journalist, and Jo Kukhatas, a prominent playwright who takes on political themes. Now, before we get to that, joining us on the phone now is Malaysia's Home Minister, Syed Hamid Albar. Mr. Albar, thank you for your time. And as you've heard, we've been discussing restrictions on the media and arts and the use of the Internal Security Act in particular, which is seen by some as a means to silence political opponents. Isn't it time to amend the ISA law so that citizens can't be held indefinitely without trial?
Yes, I like to, Reece, thank you very much. I'd just like to begin by expressing my deepest sympathy to the Indian government and its people, and I think we condemn the appalling act of violence, and I think we will assist India in whatever we can. But in respect of the question about being discussed, I think the most important thing is for us to be able to ensure that whatever we do, we can handle freedom of expression, we can handle criticisms, but everything that is done must be in conformity with the law. We must look not purely at the individual rights, but we must look at the interests of society. So that is what we have been doing all this while. We look at the human development, and so that people feel free, people feel they don't fear for their life, or that there will be disorder, or their life will be interrupted or interfered with.
But Minister, it seems very much that almost universally, you know, the questions I've asked of people here, they feel the ISA is an outdated law. It's being used for something it wasn't designed for, that it's basically time it went, at least very heavily modified or completely repealed, that it really doesn't stand anymore, that it's actually more of a problem for the people than a benefit.
I think if you look at the law, Malaysia is one of the few countries in the world that have not suffered terrorist acts. We have not suffered activities that cause people to be in conflict, open conflict with each other, because we take preventive action. I think what is most important in our context is to see the unity and harmony of our people. Yes, you have freedom. I don't think we have a problem with freedom. You can do whatever you want, so long as you don't touch on the right of others. You're exercising your responsibilities.
So there is one feeling that perhaps the strength and the appeal of bloggers and the alternative media suggests that the government is largely out of touch with what the people want. How do you address that?
I mean, the government is not out of touch. The problem that we have a gap between the vocal or vociferous minority and the majority of the people. The majority of the people would like to see the country safe, secured, and there is public order. Now, I think in so far as press freedom is concerned, I think it's very clear, even though people keep on criticizing, censorship is very heavy. But I think what is very clear, there is a lot of open discussion. There's a lot of polemics on almost every subject. So I do not see, in practical terms, why should they be worried about it so long as they do not interfere with peace and security. I think so long as you conform with the law, there is no problem.
Okay, sir, thank you very much for joining us. The Home Minister, Syed Hamid Albar, joining us on the phone from here, Kuala Lumpur. I'll get you to respond in just a second. We had an email, Raja, if I can put to you first, that we had on the screen just before we went to break, and it was asking you if you thought the opposition would take the government, and if it did, would you take a role in it?
No, I do not wish to be in the government. I wish to be in the pressure group that pressures the government. And I jokingly tell my friends, they ask me, what happens if Pakatan Rakyat forms the government? I say, well, that means UMNO's in the opposition. I'll join UMNO because I want to remain in the opposition. So but you know, they feel that you know, everything we do has a hidden agenda. And I think we've criticized Pakatan, we've criticized Anwar. Personally, I wrote a stinking article, if you wish, 3 days before the Keadilan annual convention, and I got phone calls. They says, hey, what's happened? You know, do we have a mutiny on our hands? I says, no, we just want to remind you that we are Barisan Rakyat. We are the People's Front. We are not Pakatan Rakyat, the political coalition. There's a big difference. We want to be the watchdog of both political parties or both political coalitions, and what we want is ultimately to see a two-party system emerge, both almost equally strong, not one stronger than the other like now.
Kee Thuan Chye, you wanted to add something to
I'd like to pick up on what the Minister said. I think in terms of preventive measures being taken against terrorists, I believe we already have things like the Criminal Procedure Code and the Penal Code, which can be used for these purposes. And these people, if found to be truly terrorists, can then be charged in open court. And I also feel that it is not quite true that we can openly discuss any issue in the mainstream newspapers. Definitely not, because editors still exercise the right whether to publish or not. And I can bet you most mainstream editors would err on the side of caution, because there's always the Printing Presses and Publications Act hanging over their heads. They need to renew their license every year. So
Jo, yeah, I want you to get your comments on this too.
Well, I also like to add that I think that it's become very clear, if you look at the history of the ISA, it hasn't been terrorists who've been arrested. There have been all kinds of people arrested under the ISA, including women activists who have, who have tried to lobby for the rights of sex workers, or student activists, teachers, lecturers, trade unionists, MAS, I think in the 70s, who went on strike, were arrested under the ISA. So we don't see many terrorists being arrested under the ISA, but it appears to be that the ISA becomes a very convenient tool of government to arrest those who are not convenient to the government, just as, I think nowadays accusations of sodomy become very convenient tools for the government. So I think the reason why we no longer, I think, are willing to tolerate this is because it's become very clear that it's not being used for what it's supposed to be used for.
I think we have a caller on the line. Kevin, you're with us. Are you? Your question, please.
Yes, hi, Reza. Hi, Roger Petra. Good to have you back with us.
Hi, go ahead.
For your illegal detention under IC. Yes, Roger Petra, I have a question regarding your statutory declaration. You mentioned in your SD that the royalty knew about Najib Razak and his wife's involvement in Altan Tunya's murder. However, up till today, the royalty did not come forward to present the evidence. Why is that so?
Okay. Kevin, because Raja couldn't hear the question, he was basically asking you about your article writing about Najib Razak and his wife, and you were saying about the royalty and why royalty didn't come forward. Why do you think the royalty didn't come forward?
I don't quite get the question. I mean, why should the royalty come forward? For what reason?
We had a lot of people in our chat room asking right now, as it's going on live, asking about your sources. An email question might tie into this, which is came in from Malaysia, from Dipan in Melaka, who says, you say you have all this information, but that you refrain from saying too much because you want to protect a whistleblower. Fine, but why don't you throw caution to the wind and just pour it all out? We're tired of all the secrecy.
Well, I think we've already informed the court that we're going to subpoena 6 people to the trial. My trial is starting soon. In fact, tomorrow I'm in court for a mentioning. And I did mention in my article we're going to issue subpoenas to 12 people, 6 of which already have been issued. The court would not allow us to issue the subpoenas on grounds it is too premature and it's too early. We said, yes, we realize, we know the law, but we just want people to know that these are the people who are going to be subpoenaed. And the court won't allow us at the moment. So I think the court also wants to hide all these whistleblowers, not only me.
I want to ask you, Kee Thuan Chye, the issue of people speaking out, if they speak out against the government, is there an automatic tendency in Malaysia to assume that they are then the mouthpiece of the opposition?
Yes, but most people are quite afraid to speak out in any case, and that's because of the culture of fear that has been with us for the last, 3 decades. And it was reinforced during the time of Mahathir's reign, and with Operation Lalang, which happened in 1987, resulting in 100 over people being detained under the ISA for being so-called political dissidents. That really reinforced the culture of fear, and most people will not speak out. You know.
I think that there's been a real change. I think the change came about with the arrest of Anwar Ibrahim. I think that was our loss of our innocence. So that while I think in the past maybe some people had been canvassing against the ISA, it was still pretty much a taboo subject. But suddenly to see even the Deputy Prime Minister can be arrested, and later accused of activities that came under the jurisdiction of the ISA, it just seemed to be so broad-reaching, especially since it was, at one point, it was charges of corruption and sodomy, then converted to the charges of the ISA, and then reconverted to corruption and sodomy yet again. So it just seems so arbitrary. And I think seeing that played out in the media as well through the trial, I think just made everybody just, things fell from their eyes.
We've got another caller on the line. I think it's Malha from Malaysia. Go ahead.
My question is to Rajapaksa, with his good record that what he has done since 1997, that he has been proven right until today. Yeah. Instead of going against the government or against the opposition, why not work together with people for the good of the people?
Okay, so why not work together with the people for the good of the people?
That's what we're doing. I mean, people keep imagining that Malaysia today or me is everything about Anwar, and we're trying to tell them it's not about Anwar. We have our own movement called Barisan Rakyat. Barisan Rakyat is basically the People's Front, and people confuse that with Pakatan Rakyat. We formed Barisan Rakyat before they formed Pakatan Rakyat, you know.
Roger, there I have to stop you, unfortunately, and thank all three of you because we've run out of time, but thank you very much for this debate. There's so much more we could ask, but hopefully next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. On the next show, we have a live interview with the man who shaped modern-day Malaysia. Mahathir Mohamad joins us here to answer your questions from me and the team here in Washington. See you next time.